Okay, folks, are we ready for the next session? Changing the system from within, influencing front-level practice and politicians' mindset. So, societies and states are at a crossroad in how children are to be treated, how their rights should be protected and respected. Children's new position and the emphasis on their rights are changing the traditional relationship between the family and the state and the court's role towards children. And this is, I think, is one of the major changes that we can see now in our societies. This is one of the major modernization steps that we are taking now. And it's going to revolutionize many of the ways we do things in the institutions that we have built. So what we see is that the individuals that are receiving services, they are raising their voices and they are demanding a place at the table. In Norway, the Change Factory and the pros are attempting to change the system and the decision-making processes, and they have, in my opinion, made a huge impact on the Norwegian system, both on the political level, on the administrative level, on the court level, which has been an important and a really, really influencing force in Norwegian discourses. So, how do they do it? How are they able to make these changes? How are they able to influence? And are there any challenges that we can ask to this influence? So first, we will then have the pros that we already have met for a few minutes back to tell a little bit about how they have been working. Secondly, we will have how should I put it, Svanhild? So we will have Svanhild Alvar, which used to be the head of the child protection service in Bergen, to tell about one of the programs that they implemented and how they thought about it from a practitioner's viewpoint. Then we have a student group, the Pro Bono group, that have evaluated one of the programs, Mitt Liv or My Life Child Protection. And finally, we have from Finland, one of the most esteemed researchers on child protection, Tarja Puso from Tampere University. She has both worked with expert by experience, but also thought a bit and reflected a bit about what are the challenges and what are the ups and downs with that approach. So, first out, Gloria, Fredrik, and Marit, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Yes. Hello again. Yeah, I feel so. Because when we're talking, we need the eyes to be up here, and we hear sounds, and we see feelings in you guys, and that makes it safe to speak both from the heart and the head. So it's just, it's important to just keep on going, do that.
Sound is fine. So we are not researchers like researchers, but with feelings. And I think it was like that in the last session. So we just go on. Gloria, is it anything else to say about this room so you can feel safe?
I need smiles from your faces. So, because if not, I think maybe you are bored, or maybe I said something bad, or I started thinking like that. So if you smile, then I will be safe.
And maybe it's like this for all children, but also you have met so many adults, and it's you can maybe feel it faster.
You know, when I meet people, I judge them on 15 seconds. So already now I know who I would talk to and not on the look on your faces. So, often it becomes like that when you meet a lot of grown-ups. You judge fast. And that's not a good thing, but I can't do anything about it right now. So if you smile, then I will be safe and I will give you the advices from here.
Many children say it's also a protecting thing, because they met so many adults, so they have to kind of protect themselves to go where they feel safe.
Yes.
Yeah. We tell you a little bit more about what we're doing, and also maybe some challenges. Because yes, there are some challenges, and we feel them, I think, every day.
Yes.
And some of them are, or it could be about, I think one of them is about power. Is this a good idea? Is it right that we want children's rights? Is it true? I think we have to ask this question in Norway pretty often. And also, is this good to the children? These questions we have to ask, because in the beginning, 15 years ago, I think, for example, psychologists ask these questions every week. Not the first one, but the second one. And I think both of them are important questions. And there are more questions. But like we showed before, these are the main, it's kind of things we are doing, activities also. So it's these 4 parts. And the 2 and 3 and 4, that's about presenting the data, the information from the children. And I think we start talking a little bit about the number 4, changing laws, because in the beginning we didn't know that. I worked in Save the Children before. It was lots of focus on children's rights, and I love Save the Children organization. But I also saw in this organization that we talked lots about children's rights, but also we had some challenge about how to involve the children, because there were programs decided by adults, and it was some international commitment or rules, and in Norway it was like children saying, but we don't want to do it in this way, and then it was international Save the Children decided things, and so there are different challenges also in there. So we thought we have to build this. It's a foundation. Change Factory is a foundation, idealistic foundation, and we had to build it from the bottom. We have nothing when we start. We brought one methodology called Participatory Learning and Action. It's PLA, and it's I learned it in Uganda, and it was amazing. I was with Save the Children, and I was in a small village, and we were there together with the whole village, and they were working on changing the village, and then right in the middle on the 4th day, the children, they raised in front of the older people, and they presented their answer, and it was like, wow, these subjects we never even asked children in Norway about. It was so important questions they answered, and it was like, wow, we talk about activity days in schools, and we talk about what kind of drinks they should have in the restaurant in school or the canteen thing. Oh, and it was like in Uganda they talked about where should we build a school, and it was So I thought, and Norway, we like to think we are the champions in child participation. I thought that was what we were presented, I think, and it was good meaning. Everything was good meaning. But then we had to start asking children. Ja, og så tror jeg vi går rett inn der. We started doing this maybe 8 years ago. The first pro went to the parliament in hearings. And then they present the summarized knowledge from children. And they present it in front of, this is a committee of health, I guess, because Julia, she was one of the first pros also doing it. And we met her first time in a mental hospital. She was in there in the room. They recommended us not to talk to her because she was not talking. So we said, could we please talk to her just for a short while? And then she was talking. If she got big enough questions, important enough questions. And one question she never heard before, she said, was, how is it to be Julia in this mental hospital? How is it for you, and what are your most important advices to the people working here? So then Julia, she has been through all the activities we do in Change Factory, and you also have presented in front of the parliament committees. How are we doing it? Maybe you should explain. Fredrik, you have done it lots of times.
For me, one of the most important things that we do when we are in a hearing is to make a room safe and warm, and because I think the adults need the same safety and the same kind of love as we do, but grown-ups often don't talk about it in that kind of way, and they're very formal, and they're sitting there with their suits and computers and stuff like that. And when we get in a room like that, we say to them that we need your eyes to be up here and your computers shut. Not in a mean way, but because we need to have it safe in this room to speak honest and to give the best advices from the heart. And then we are giving those advices, and we have to give them in like a very humble way, because both me and Gloria have been a lot angry with the systems, and we've been shouting out, but we've learned also that the adults are very similar to us. When we get yelled at, we don't listen, the same as adults. You don't listen if we are shouting at you. So we have to be humble, but also very honest, and have to explain to adults why we are giving the advices that we are giving to them. And we also, almost every time, we give them hugs either when we are coming or when we are leaving the room, because they need love. In the parliament, in the department, everywhere they need love, because
and they're waiting for it when you are
coming. Yeah, like they're please don't go yet. But I think that's one very important thing when we are doing changes, because we can lift up themes that are very harsh, or it can feel bad when we are giving them advices, because a lot of adults have been working with it for maybe 30 years, and then we came in and say that what you have been doing for 30 years is wrong. If it's bad, you've hurted us. So we have a lot of respect for the adults' feelings as well. But we also have to give them the advices and answers to how to make it better.
And we have to have fun, so we make nicknames. Like the health minister's name is Bent Høie, and we call him Benty Boy. And that's because we have to have fun also when we talk about so serious stuff.
And in Norway, I don't know in all countries, but in Norway it's possible to do like that. And the government right now, I think they like it.
Yes, he tweeted it.
And they open up like that, and they tweet, and that's one of their identity things, to be open, and then you meet it, and in warm ways. But like you asked, these and many of them are angry when they come because they come in there to change. They come in there because they have, some of them have not very bad experiences in the systems, but they still want to make it better, to help to make it better, and to also to tell good experiences, so that, and that's important in Change Factory. It's not only about bad experiences, it's also to ask for good experiences, because when we meet Svanhild and all her staff, for example, they learn easier if they hear, the good things that you met in the system, because it's easier, and then you can give good examples, and then they can remember it, and they want to be like the woman you're talking about, for example. So it's very important also to focus on the good things. But then there are also many sad things and very many hard, difficult things in your bodies. Often when we meet new pros or new young people, and then it's very important to listen through this history. So we don't do that on stage. We don't do that in front of the professionals, because that's kind of delivering all the history. We don't do these things. We do glimpse of it to illustrate kind of what was the problem, but not to tell the story. So the story, we have to talk about it in the factory. We have to listen, and you can tell me. And sometimes I get after 2 years together with Gloria, all of a sudden I get 20 SMSs, because you are starting talking about things from happening in your life, and then I have to receive it as good as I can. But that's also very important, because you're living this through these hard things while you are pros. And that's one important thing, I think, that we are working together with young people in the system now.
We don't have... you can't be in the change factory when you are over 23 years old, because then your experience are old and all these things and blah blah. And that's why we talk with the children in the system now. We go in the mental health service or schools, and we talk with them now, and they give advice about how the system feels right now, and that's really important.
And also when you're getting older, you're starting to reflect about the things that happened. Maybe when you lived in an institution and they used force on you, you can say that, oh, but I was kind of angry, I was high on some drugs. But no, it's not okay to use force at children anytime, unless it's a danger for life, right? So when you get older, you're starting to reflect on something. I don't know if it's bad or good, but something happens in your head. So you have to be like in it and in the feelings to know what's good and what's not so good.
That's our focus. There are different organizations in Norway. There are other organizations also, including older young people. And that's fine, that's perfect, and that's important also. That's different perspective. But with this one we saw in Norway, it's like it isn't there. So that's why we also say we organize for children in the systems right now. So the politicians should know this knowledge from the young people in the system now.
And the way to make us a little bit less angrier is to give us warmth and love and all the things. And because I was really, really angry, I don't know how many times I've shouted at Marit, and I still have it in me. But the way to not make me angry is to make the room safe. Like here, you have to smile, and the one thing I learned suddenly was, I was just like, I sat and heard at the professionals, and I was like, they have never meant wrong. They just didn't understand. They forgot to ask me. They have never, because I thought that the professional was mean people, and that's where my anger comes from. So where I sat and heard, and I was just like, they didn't understand a thing. So they forgot to ask, and that's the way I became a less angrier there, because I understood they're not mean people.
Gloria, for example, she has you have lived in this different type of institutions and went through both mental health and social or child protection system. And we had to, because the anger, it came out first year pretty often. It could come on stage, and it was also hard for adults receiving this. So we had to find out what to do, and then you read your papers through this case, and then we went to the leader of the system, and then we had a 2-3 hours meeting with the leader and some of the other leader below, and then you talked through it all. And that was one way of doing it. And that was therapy for both?
Yes, that was really, really therapy. They cried and cried and cried and cried, and they was like, we didn't understand what we was going to do with you, because we were so scared for you, because I did really bad things to myself and others, and they were like, we were really scared and we didn't know. And then I understood how they thought, and I got some answers, and they understood what they did wrong with me and what they could have done different.
And you are some examples. We have pros around in Norway, and we have staff in 6 cities. So they organize groups, and they are called pro warmers. So their job is to warm and to keep it warm in the group, and to do activities for fellesskap, for you to do things together, to feel part of a group, because many of them are also feeling very lonely, because community, things, and it's so important questions for Norway. So it's this mixture. Okay, this is the committee we told you about in last session, because when they heard the minister was going to change the law without one child in the group, some of them got really angry. They have been in this law, like you said before, and this was not for fun. This was really, really, really important thing, and we did it immediately. So you spent a summer holiday and worked some weeks to prepare a proposal for a new law. And then it was the copy-paste idea, and you presented it for the Minister of Children.
But it was not, you have to understand that this was not easy, but sort of it was easy as well. But we had to read the paragraphs and understand it, and the way we got a lot of anger when we read it, because the way they looked at children, or the way we felt the law was describing children and how to work with children was, I don't know, from my perspective, it felt kind of mean, because it described children as, I don't know, in some of the paragraphs as it was the children that was the problem, and we have to fix the child and to place it somewhere else so it cannot be, I don't know, a danger to society or stuff like that. Not giving the things that the child needs to be, I don't know, a kind person to society.
Yeah, you said in the purpose it says nice things, and then some of the paragraphs it's not talking together with the purpose of the law.
Wow.
So then started this. It's a long process, because the law is not finished yet, and it takes another 2, 3, 4, I don't know, Kirsten, how many years? Maybe I think it comes on a new hearing next year. That's number 2 hearing in Norway. So it's kind of hard, because they are growing up and they are getting adult. They are adults, and then new children come to work on the law. So, but it's the most important thing, because there are so many things in this system that it depends on this law mistakes, says the children, according to the children. And we showed you, because love is there. I don't know if it is in some other. Is it in some other law in Europe? Have you seen it? It's not. It is in the purpose. You have to remember that. So it's not like you can do rettssaka. Suit. You cannot suit professionals, and that was not the purpose for the children. It was only that they wanted to be met from professionals with love. So I don't know. It should be all over Europe, I think. Is there any? Could you raise your hand if you mean that, or if you think that children shouldn't be met by love? So it depends what love means. And
because we struggled a little bit, or very much, around Norway, because professionals were giving the word love so much meaning. They talked about having sexual abuse and sex between people and in your family, and all kind of, they tried to figure out every single way they can say, I don't know, not work with love. But we tried to figure out, okay, but if we can agree on the innehåll,
content,
on the content, and we worked a lot with that. But when we finally agreed with it, we just said that we're gonna call it love, because what children lays in that word are those things that we agreed on. So we're gonna call it love. So adults just have to, I don't know, get used to it.
So the Prime Minister, she came very proud and presented this article in the opening of the the Child Knowledge Center. That was the party day. Yeah, it really was. And then the directory for children, it started telling us that you should do right things, because we were telling lots of things around in Norway, presenting for Svanhild and all over Norway, these answers from children, but so too little of it was written down. So this is the first book. It came in nå hva heter det, forlag? Publishing house. It came in our own publishing house because we had no time because they spent last summer doing this. And these are the authors. And this is about child care system from those who know it from their bodies.
So 62 children made the book.
Yeah.
From all over Norway.
And now a new book comes. And this, I think, is going to make bigger change. And we heard that in your university this week, that the teachers or the professor, she said in front of her students, then when this book came, she thought, I cannot put it in the pensum curriculum because it's only children, you know, and it's not academic and it's not. But when she saw this book with 7 child care leaders and 7 youth, then she started thinking, oh, then maybe we can put it on the curriculum. And then she said that. She was honest and she said in front of you. And that was very great because then we got a very important dialogue, I think, about what is important to learn to the students. This book has been 1 year of work. And in the beginning, they were sure you were going to write some chapters, and the social welfare leaders were going to write another one. But then they said they want to write together with you.
Yes, so the whole book is something they stand back and we stand back. It's not different chapters from different perspectives, or is this? But we can stand behind it, everyone, at everything.
So it's called the children's child care child protection system. So it is going to challenge. So I don't know what's happening to this book, but it is in some of the curriculums now. Okay. Now about my life, child welfare services. It's a development program. Hva heter fagutviklingsprogram? Because we heard after some years of doing this that some very professionals, they start talking about this is very interesting, but then we have to talk about the fagutvikling. Can you help me?
Development and the research that's available, academics and
Yeah.
more credible.
More credible, because this is about users' voice. But then there is something else they said that is about they split it. They talk about it like research is one thing and this is something else. And then we said this has to be put together. But can you explain what are we doing in this development work?
We are cooperating with the childcare services. We started from our perspective, giving the workers in the different services our advices. And when we are giving advices, it's not just from my life, but it's from the other pros that have been in the Change Factory giving advices over the past 10 years. And then we gave them some working methods that they could try out, and they gave us feedback, and we started to cooperate what is good professionality in the services seen from the children and from the adults working there.
And what happened? And we do it on some other subjects also. This is care institutions in the system. And this has been really difficult dialogues.
Yes.
About, like we said, force, and about what is a good professional in there. What is it really to be a good professional? Who is going to define it?
Yeah.
We are asking now.
And we discussed how are they going to work on the institutions in a way that helps us. And we talked about what is a safe institution, safe for the children and safe for the ones that work there. We have had really yes.
Because Bufdir, the directory for these institutions, childcare directory, children's directory, they have use the word safe. Everyone do. Safe. Okay? And they have explained. And then we ask children what is a safe institutions. And if you see these two explanations, then you find out that some of it is the same, but some of it is contra, and it's opposite. And what are we doing then in a country that want to be the best for the children? And what is the best of the child? That's also a big question, when this is different answers. So these are important dialogues, and they try this methodology and find out what is good for the professionals to use from this. And that's also important because they are going to do it every day. So that's why we have to work together. And they find out, and then they come back to you and they say, this is impossible to do in this law frame, or because we don't believe in it as professionals. But lots of things is possible, and they didn't know, they say. Or they didn't think about it.
And the funny thing is that the fagfolk, the professionals said in the beginning when we heard you, we thought problem. But after we had these dialogues, we started thinking solution. So that's the one thing that's really important with these My Life programs, is that we have to have these dialogues to find something together, because the professional can't find something by herself. Training programs, all these things, you can't make it grown-ups alone. You have to have the children with you and make it together, because if you don't make it together with us, then you don't know if it works for us or not.
And there is also with mental health, been also a pretty hard one, because they have lots of frames and things. They are part of the hospital. But it ended last June in recommendations from mental health professionals, psychiatrists and psychologists and children. Recommendation for Norway to work safe and useful, and to work together with children. That's the goal. And now we also do it with the big cities in Norway. That's a new program. It's kind of a program. It's a development work, and we do it with 9 of the 10 biggest cities in Norway. And it's really, really exciting because it's on all fields. Yeah. So it's also no schools and kindergartens in these programs. And there are new questions coming up.
But one thing you are also looking at is good quality indicators seen from children.
Det kommer nå.
Okay.
Bare raskt. Ord har vært noe av det som forandret, sant?
We've changed also a lot of words that's been used in systems, because when you're studying to work as a professional, you learn a lot of different words in your education. But some of those words don't feel safe for us, and they do something with their heads of adults. And how are you looking at children? If you're looking at a child as a user, you've set yourself in the center, not the child. So the words you're using also have a lot of meaning in how you're working with children.
And that's a small thing and a big thing. Because you learn them a dialect, like some of them, the children said. And when they start talking this dialect after they finish their education, there are problems. This is maybe the most important things in all this development work, because it's about values in the professionals. We found out some years ago that there are no values, focused values in these educations in Norway, that all the professionals, they come out, or they finish their education, and we asked them, what kind of values did you learn? And they came up with 20 values, and it was like, then we asked children. And then they came, when we summarized it, these are the most important one. And then, Fredrik, here are the goal right now is to implement recommendations. We do it in a leader network all over Norway. You talk with leaders in networks. I think we had 50 networks last couple of years.
Ja.
Forklar det kort.
Jeg vet ikke hva
Ledernettverk, hvordan kjennes det? How are the feelings?
I feel that it's really important because the leaders and we discuss how are we going, because in all my life programs we make recommendations for all Norway in that system, in all my life program. And when we go to leader network, we discuss, okay, now we have made recommendations together. How are we going to do it in practice? In practice. How are we going to do it in practice? And how are you leaders, going to know that your contact persons are doing it? How can you check and how can you know that they actually work in practice with these recommendations?
Yeah.
It's really important talks we have.
So they made quality indicators. And you know Fylkesmann in Norway, the state representative in the regions, they are very interested in this because these indicators, they are also made by children together with the leaders of the child welfare system. So because in Norway, the regional state representatives, they are checking things, but there is zero match between what children says is very important to check the child welfare system and what they're checking right now, because they have to check the number things and all these things, but these people are talking about different things. What is important in the welfare system? We can make it go together. It's not black,
No.
but it's important to know.
Yeah, it's like you can come to my foster care home 5 times a year, but that hasn't any meaning if the meetings aren't good and if you can't make it safe enough for me to tell how the foster care feels. Like, you know, so that's why it's important to make everything that these systems are going to work with or train at or in the schools, everything has to be made with us, with the one you are going to help, because if not, you can't help us.
Yeah.
Great. Put your hands together for the pros, please. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you so much. This was wonderful to hear. And we will now hear from the child protection leader, the one that has actually implemented this. So Svanhild Alvar, the floor is yours. And also I can see that what we have, for those of you that attended the keynote yesterday, and you saw the discussions on kind of how to measure things, which now the pros are kind of showing how the indicators play in and where the children has not been included in developing the indicators, but also as we saw from the IDEA project and the interdisciplinarity and how we build silos, we are not able to communicate across and we do not have trust across these disciplines. So we can see that these are so immensely important topics that we are bringing up. Svanhild, are you ready for, and do you need something, you need something on your head? Yes. Do you want to start with this one?
Yes, I can start, and then I need a thing like that. First of all, I would say thank you to you. It's so nice to listen to you, as always. På nå. Tikk-takk. Sånn. Okay. Denne må jeg da putte i lomma. Jeg kan bare begynne liksom med det første bildet. Det er meg for en tid tilbake. Det andre bildet er sånn som jeg har følt meg for noen. Oh, the first picture is me when I was younger. The second is how I feel some days. My name is Svanhild Alvar, as she said, and thank you for having me. It's very nice to be here. I'm 61 years old. My English is not perfect. I'm a grandmother that I love to be. I love to cook and serve my family and my friends, and especially young people. And I love this beautiful city where I live. Yeah. I worked in child welfare service for over 30 years, and over 20 of these years I have been a leader for district welfare services here in Bergen. When I and many of my co-workers, when we were young, we started out of education to be a social worker. We were entitled to help. And we learned to give help on the client's own premises was very important, and such that the person could have the help to help him or herself. We were also trained for ethic reflection, and we learned about values in social work. But we didn't understand good enough the deep impact that people, also children and youth, were the experts on their own life. As a new in the child welfare services, we become a part of a large bureaucracy. There were many rules to follow, as it is today. When to work, how to report, what to report, and we had a small amount of flexibility. Children were at that time, late in the 80s, registered as part of the father journal system, in spite that many of children was the child of a single parent. The parents, and especially the fathers, had in that system a lot of power to define the family situation. Primarily, we talked to the mothers, we had a briefly conversation with the child, and we had observations. Our decisions were based on these observations, conversations with the family, school system, and healthcare system, and maybe police and others. We were in need for a change. To develop and improve, To develop and improve a child focus become more and more important for us, especially after we were more educated to understand child psychology and how important care and environment are for children's growth and development. But on the other hand, there were so many demands in the services, and we were so few people to working with the families. We needed to improve our settings when we should talk to the child, how to give age-appropriate information, explanations, and in general better proceedings. How could we cooperate with the child and be sure that we had everything right? At this time in 2013, we met the Change Factory, and we, a local child welfare services, started to work in cooperation with the Change Factory. They were good, and they had their strengths in their advices based on their own experiences. Who can argue against a person who talks about his or her own experience? And we knew that these experiences had been so hard for them to live through. Of course, we listened, but sometimes some of us wanted to defend ourselves and our system that we were a part of. But after a while, we understand that this discussion was something that should be taken in turn in the organization. We should take this discussion together with our colleagues, and we should evaluate their function. Hører du meg nå? Evaluate the function in social work with children and youth. Yes. In the Change Factory, we had found a partner that could help us to take back social work and bring child welfare service up to a new level. We were good enough in our conversation with the children, we thought. We hoped to say yes, but the answer was no. We decided that we change. Og nå får vi denne her. Så vi det var ikke meningen. Går det an å få vekk teksten min? Nei, jeg vil bare ha den. Jeg trenger ikke denne, det er bare min... det bare, ok, den bare der. Ja. But first some clarification. We carefully selected our focus areas related to the child welfare procedures, start phase, investigation phase, follow-up phase. We choose working methods. This could be related to this should be related to whether the child had chosen his or her contact person in the service, where the conversation with the child took place, if the child was asked, if it was satisfied with the conversation, if the child felt he or she had a plan he or she had contributed to, had ownership to it, and that the plan was understandable and relevant. This was something that we started with. We made out some simple forms for logging our conversation with children, and we worked very systematically over certain periods to clarify what we really did. These forms we also sent to the Change Factory for a review, and we had internal discussions for why and how to change. In the beginning, there were big and endless discussions about love. Could children and youth demand love? Maybe they could demand a loving environment, but what was love? Some said, love is something between me and my children, or me and my husband. We agreed. Okay, that's love. But please open your heart a bit more, or look to yourself. What are you really doing when you meet young people? We found some difference between our social workers in the service, or the contact person that we have started to call them at that time. So we decided to take back some of our skills and make some small reminders in the daily contact with children and youths. We made new rules, we changed some words, and all this in the cooperation with the Change Factory. For example, smile. Say something nice. Say thank you after a conversation. All these are small things, but they are so important. We defined important words: love, care, so it shows. Care, show that you want everything to go well. Be okay. Clarify, say it, explain it. Reason, say it in a way that's understandable. Careful, talk about his and her family in a good way, a respectful way. Available, make arrangements that explain where you are and when you are back, and always call back. Share a bit of your own, show yourself. Repeat, say it, show it. Say, I love you, or I care so much about you. Recognize disagreement, take things seriously, refer to and see kids at mine, and real expectations. And we did a lot more to secure that the children and youth should be an active part. Be an active part in the collaboration with us and her contact person in the services. We had many conversations outside our office. We let the youth write their own report after the conversation. Young people should always have an agreement over what was their own written plan. And in process, we recruited a new contact, and in one process that we recruited a new contact person for the services. We invited a young person from the Change Factory to take part in the interview and decision process. So what we did was making both new rules, changing the structure, and we had in all this discussion that had a big impact for our culture. And together it made a better organization, but it was not easy. Today, we are so happy that the Change Factory have done all its good work, especially that they have challenged our politicians, and through this there has been a very big change in the child welfare services. A new structure is set, so hopefully the good work and the good time will come. So this is The second line, the law will help children, and love is a part of it. It's very nice. Thank you. Oops.
Is it on? Yeah. Oops, sorry. Svanhild, fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing this, and the working method. I mean, I remember for a few years back, I met you and your team at Gardermoen, and you had just been to one of the events that the Change Factory had organized, and you were energized. I remember that you were just kind of going for it. So we have now a new set of presenters. We have Amy, and we have Siri, and we have Lisette. They are part of a pro bono group in which do research for free. And they have taken upon themselves to study together with a lot of other master students and PhD students here at the university, and they have made an evaluation of my life child protection. So they have now, I'm going to show you a few snapshots from this study, so take well imot.
Thank you, Marit, and thank you to the Change Factory, the Svanhild. So my name is Amy, and I'm part of the Pro Bono group here at the university, and I also work at the Center for Research on Discretion and Paternalism. And we're going to present some findings from our study. It's part of a report that we have called Towards the Child-Centric Perspective, and it's a study of the implementation of the program My Life Child Protection that you've heard already about. So this is the Pro Bono group. It grows and shrinks because students, of course, graduate, so it changes persons, but essentially we do research for free on a voluntary basis. We meet during our lunch hour every week or every second week. And the best thing about doing research for free is, of course, we can do what we want and what we think is fun. So one of the things, the most recent project that we have is when we heard about the My Life project or program, we wanted to see maybe what are the effects, how does this work in practice? So because we are researchers, we like to ask questions and we like to measure things. So we wanted to measure the implementation of the My Life program for child welfare workers. My Life Child Welfare, you already heard a lot about it. But I just want to repeat the core values that are so important to the program. This is openness or honesty. Of course, this is translated to English, so it would be in Norwegian. Humility, love, and participation. And we're going to talk more about love because this is one of the most fantastic things about the Change Factory, that you actually did get love into the law suggestion, and this is such a cool thing. So our question is, how does My Life affect child welfare workers in practice? Well, we had to find out a way to measure this, so we did a survey. Before we made the survey, we had meetings and dialogues with the pros as well as the child welfare services to ask them what tools are you trying to implement, what questions should we ask, what kind of effects are we really wanting to measure. We made a survey with a vignette, which is a case study to all the lawyers here, where we have a story of a child and we ask the child welfare workers, what would you do in this situation? We have open and closed questions. In that way we can directly but also indirectly measure how openness, love, humility and participation have a place in child welfare's work. So we can ask them directly, how does it affect you, but also indirectly to see what kind of things do they mention that we can draw back to the My Life approach. We contacted 277 child protection services, a lot, and 130 of those are not part of the My Life program. And the reason we did that is because we want to compare, is there a difference between those who have the program and those who don't have the program, so we have that baseline. There are different levels of ambitions for implementation. I'm not going to explain in detail what that means, but you can say very simply that level 0, they are not part of My Life. Level 1 is sort of base level of ambition. Level 2 is the medium level, and level 3 is the highest level. So we also wanted to see if there are differences in the levels of ambition and the answers that they give. We asked child protection workers about the values in My Life, and we had 765 people participate, which is a huge number. And they come from all the levels of ambition. And so my colleague Siri is going to present one of the results where child welfare workers who have participated in the program were asked one question. If, in your experience, My Child Welfare has affected your daily work, in what ways has it affected you? And we wanted them to mention 2 important ways. So you can have this clicker.
Is it on? Yeah, okay. So yes, so we are, I think it was 409 child welfare workers who answered this question. And it was an open-ended question, so the welfare workers could write longer paragraph or just shorter sentences. And we got a lot of different answers, and we tried to sort of code them and make more sense. And what we find in these answers from the child welfare workers are that they especially have 4 main ways that they see that this program have sort of changed their work. And then we have, these are the sort of 4 main categories: participation and involvement, language and terms used, understanding of their own profession, and not that much of a change. I will give you some examples and go a bit into what we mean by these 4 categories. So a large majority, around 77%, mentioned that My Life has increased user participation. And in that, they sort of mentioned that they want to involve the children, they want to let them participate, but they also mentioned that family members should also be more included in the process. And they also sort of mentioned that they have a bigger sort of focus on involving the people who are sort of in most of the cases that they work with. And we have some examples of what some of the some of the child welfare workers wrote. One of them are increased consciousness around user participation, and what we should speak with the children, and that we should speak with the children first and speak with them more. Also, I focus more on what the child or young person want for solutions and thoughts about their own life and their own situation. And then we found that around half of the child welfare workers, 52%, mentioned that they have altered their understanding of their own profession because of My Life. And an example to illustrate that is provided me with the necessary legitimacy and security to think that it is also professional to allow yourself to be touched, to care about, and to show love to those I meet in my work. So this is really interesting findings, especially in terms of what you also are talking about, that you want love to be a big part. We also found that 1/4, around 24% of the child welfare workers mentioned that they have changed the language and which terms they use, and then they presented to you and how the terms that they want the child welfare workers to use and to be a bit more child friendly. And one example is that professional terminology is changed in favor of using my life expressions. And there were around, I think it was 30% who said that my life has not altered their way of working or changed the way they're working, how they're working. And some of those answers involve that they hadn't been working with the My Life program too long, and also said that they have always been using this, so they're already sort of implemented in their work life. Yes, and Lisette, she's going to talk more about this. You can have this.
Hello. Yes. So in addition to seeing that the effect My Life child welfare had on the child welfare workers' daily work, we also saw a variation across the ambition levels. And we wanted to focus on love. We've been talking a lot about love before today, and it's a very interesting topic. And we, when we asked about love, we saw a difference in those at different ambition levels and how they understood what love is in child welfare work. And our question was an open question. Love is suggested as a core value in child welfare. What do you think love is in child welfare? And the child welfare workers were allowed to answer as much or little as they wanted. And this gave a wide range of answers, all from it's the most important thing in child welfare to it doesn't have anything to do in child welfare. So because of the variation because of the variations in the answers, we had to, everybody knows love is a very complicated thing, so we had to go through it 3 times. The first time we had a negative positive perspective to see if the answers were negatively directed, positively directed, or in between. The second time, it was more about perspectives. Was it a child-centered perspective? Was it an adult perspective? Or was it a relationship perspective in the answers? So the third round, it was more about the core of the answers and what the social child welfare workers really meant. So we found 4 main categories. The first one being compassion and being close. And when the child protection workers described love in this category, they described this as physical and or emotional closeness through actions or emotion that reflects compassion. So like this child welfare worker says, show compassion and empathy, show that we care and are available. Use names and be more personal. Make sure to create good connections, touch, and give hug. And this was the overall largest description of compassion and being close of the child welfare workers. And we saw a difference between the levels. On the lowest level, that the child services that didn't implement My Life, there was about 50% of the answers that were connected to this category. But at the level 3, the highest level of implementation, there was a 72% answer rate. So the second category, the child's right to participate or cooperation. This was answers that the child protection or child welfare workers described love as being connected with action, thoughts, perspectives based on the child's needs and or the child's own voice. So an example is a child welfare worker saying that love in child welfare work is to respect the child just as much as adults, to listen carefully to the child, creating predictability and safety. And also here we saw a big difference between the ones that didn't implement My Life and the ones that did. I will show you a graph in a minute. The third category, child welfare workers as professional helpers. This category contains answers that focus on professional tasks and facilitation, as well as professional skills like active listening and communication skills. And here, one of the answers that we got is that love in child welfare work is to inform about the actual situation based on the child's age and maturity, be active listening, and confirm what the child is saying. Yeah. And the last main category, as love often is not easy to define. And this category is we put in answers that didn't give us kind of like a concrete answer to what love is, and also answers that were negative and ambiguous. And here are two examples of answers that got in that category. Child welfare work built its competency on professional insight and not emotional affiliation. And I think it is a difficult value to impose someone to work after, since we put different meaning into the concept. It has to be defined for us to use as a mutual value for our work. And here we saw a change. Overall, 20% had answers that fitted into this category. But at the lowest level, no implementation at all, level 0, there was 37% of the answers that got into that category. On the highest level, level 3, it was 14%. So the higher level, the fewer answers in this not easy to define category. Yeah. So this is the graph showing the levels and the answers, not easy to define. You can see it level 0 is the highest, and it's the lowest on level 2 and 3. Yeah. Yeah. So, in conclusion, user participation, language, and understanding of one's own profession was the 3 major ways that my life affected those involved. Results, we also saw that the results varied across the levels of ambition. And we chose to exemplify by love, but we saw it in other values as well. For instance, when we gave the child welfare workers a case and we asked who would you contact first, and they could answer police or school or the parents or the child himself. The child welfare services on the lowest level answered school as first and police as second. And the ones that implemented my life answered school as first, but the child second instead of the police. Yeah. Yeah. And we are almost finished with our report, so look out for that one. Yeah. Thank you for your attention.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Lisette, Amy, and Siri. This was amazing to hear. And what a job. You are clever. And thank you also to the rest of the Pro Bono group. I see that we have Hilde here, and Lina is here, and we have several others giving a lot of input to it. So fantastic. The final presentation today is from Tarja Puso, professor from Tampere University in Finland, also a professor 2, as we call it in Norway, in 20% position at University of Bergen. And she will share some of her reflections and thoughts around expert by experience. Please also start thinking around questions that you would have for the various presenters, okay? Thank you.
Still have red light, so let us see. Honestly, if I had been given more than 5 minutes to say my reflections from the Finnish point of view, I would have asked whether I could have been allowed to invite a Finnish person to come with me because I feel very uneasy to speak about experts by experience in Finland without an expert by experience talking with me. I realized when sitting there that this is my first public talk about this topic on my own. Previously, we have always given these talks together, which is a message, maybe it takes it to my approach to this movement, that I think it shifts our positions in many, many ways. Also the positions of researchers and the right to know about things. I was asked to talk about challenges, but before that, still the point from the Finnish point of view that the movement of experts by experience in child welfare has been one of the most influential movements in Finland. It has changed more the thinking and principles and practices than any other recent inputs, I would say so. In particular, it has changed our understanding of children's rights for participation. Because so far, as you know, we tend to think that there could be reasons attached to children, like that they haven't got the skills or interests to participate. What this movement has shown to us is that it's not up to children, it's up to adults, and it's up to the structures to allow children to participate. And of course, there are other similar movements. I mean, we all know in social welfare and policy that service user movement is a very important movement. Also in research, we want to hear more from the views of service users instead of experts and professionals only. We also know that the sociologists tend to describe our society as autobiographical society nowadays, that we want to hear people's life stories. We have always listened at these life stories in art and culture, but now it's even media which wants to hear our experiences. Even the most important stories are told through people's experiences, personal narratives. So in that sense, the experts by experience movement in child protection follows that sort of more wider pattern. But at the same time, one has to realize that we do not listen at all narratives. In child protection, for example, the groups of parents of children who have been taken into care, they are not listened at as intensely as we listen at children. What does that tell to us? So the challenges, I pick up 2 or 3 challenges which we know in the Finnish system. And it is about knowledge being selective. That knowledge which is embedded in the experts by experience movement is selective. Some researchers say that it's elitist, that it's only certain children and young people whose voices are heard in this movement. Some critics say that this is experiential knowledge. Knowledge based on experiences is personal, it's particular, it's individualistic. And all this criticism is very relevant, and we shouldn't ignore it. But at the same time, all knowledge is selective. So that's not a way to downplay the knowledge and messages given by the experts by experience. But what I think is the challenging for policymakers and social workers is to recognize that there are indeed different types of knowledges. And we should wisely balance between the different types of knowledges. The world is all too complex to be presented only through one type of knowledge. And the other challenge is, at least thinking of the messages which the Finnish experts by experience have given, and which I heard also, I think, this morning, that there's quite a lot of messages about the conflicts in interaction between children, young people, and practitioners. And that's something which I think is very important for us. I mean, I work in social work education. I mean, of course, that's a message which we should take extremely seriously. But at the same time, child protection interventions and practice is not only about interaction. If we focus only to improve interaction, we lose a lot. And if we only try to encourage social workers and other practitioners to interact better, we ignore the fragmentation of the service provision, the privatization of child welfare sector, and other things like that, which influence practice as well. We might take a too narrow view if we only follow this message to interact better, but at the same time, that's essential. And that message on interaction is, I think, could be also problematic for children and young people, because it might lead to a situation in which we only think that children need better interaction. They need that. I mean, I'm not criticizing that, but they need much more from child protection as well. They need housing, they need good support for education and many other things, and we should be open for those things as well. Interestingly enough, our Finnish experts by experiences, they have now started emphasizing these sort of social problems much more than in the earlier years. And they point out issues which the adults or the service providers haven't noticed at all. Failures and gaps in our systems. And this is, I think, one of the challenges of this movement, that it moves all the time. It's very dynamic. And I think when we come here together in 10 years, so I hope and I assume that the topics will be quite different.
Okay, put your hands together for Taya. I think you can keep it on. Then, questions, folks. I think there's been a lot of
your approach to organizing